Hey guys, it's John C. Morley here, serial entrepreneur. You're tuned into IFYL, Inspiration for Your Life. I'm glad that you popped in tonight. If you're new here, why don't you grab your smartphone and launch that camera app, point over the QR code like so, touch the yellow lips. You'll get my link tree as easy as that. If you're not watching me, but you are just listening, like on audio podcasting, go to believemeachieve.com. More of my amazing, inspiring creations. So I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur, and I am a podcast host and a podcast coach. And I specialize in helping businesses tell, stories that lead to them growing and being more scalable, but of course, more profitable. I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more. They either have a story that they want to share, or they need me to find what that story is so I can share it to the world so people can become more curious and want to do business with them. All right, guys. So we have an amazing story for you guys tonight, one that I think you guys are going to be, how can I say, pretty happy with because, we're always looking for things like, to be better and stuff like that. And so tonight's master topic is really a really good one. This master topic, ladies and gentlemen, is part of a pretty cool series. It's called Mastering VAK Combinations for Success. Series 2 means we're in the second year. Show 45, episode number 2. So let's get into what this particular show is about. So let's talk about, first of all, what a vault is. A vault, and I want to pull right from Merriam-Webster. Okay, Merriam-Webster. We're going to go just pull it right from her. And according to Merriam-Webster, a vault is an arch structure, it's a noun, of masonry usually forming a ceiling or roof. Something such as a sky resembling a vault, or an arched or dome-shaped anatomical structure, a space covered by an arch structure, an underground passage or room, an underground storage compartment, a room compartment for safekeeping valuables, etc. So we know what a vault is. I think that's going to be interesting. So in order to have a vault, you a lot of times have something called a combination on that, such as, you'll have numbers, pen or something. And then there's something called a permutation. Now, what's the difference between a combination and a permutation? I know a lot of people will get combination locks for their bikes. I know one of the very first bikes I got stolen when I went somewhere for lunch. I put it in the bike rack. And my bike was pretty new, and all the other bikes were, let's say, kind of old and shoddy. And they went for my new bike. It was a brand new Huffy bike. It was a great bike. And my parents felt bad, so they bought me a new bike, and they bought me a combination lock. Now, it wasn't really a combination lock they bought me, even though that's what they call it. It was a permutation lock. So permutation means that the order of the number, matters. So let's talk a little about that. So let's just presume right now that I had a combination lock that was only 3. Let's say it was only 4. Mine was 6, but let's say it was 4. So we would take 4 and we would take the number. So I have 0 to 9. Okay. So we do 9 times 9 times 9. Okay. So with that, it's obviously pretty easy. You take your 9, times your 9 gives you 81. 81 times 9 gives you 729 possible permutations, because you can include repeating numbers and things like that. Now, if we want to take a phone number, okay, let's say we take, so actually, it's actually going to be more than that. Sorry, because you have 0 to 9. So if 0 to 9, you actually have 10 by 10 by 10. If it was 1 to 9, it would just be 9. But actually, it's 0 to 9 on these permutation locks. So that would be 10 times 10 times 10 again. And that would give you 1,000 possible combinations. So if I had 4, 4 would give me 10,000 combinations. Now, what about a phone number? Okay, we would take the power, we would take 10. So let's raise the number 10, to the power of 7. Okay. And that's going to give us 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 million. So an area code holds in it 10 million phone numbers. That's a lot of phone numbers, ladies and gentlemen, an awful lot of phone numbers. And so thinking about a vault, we had to have a vault because a vault is something that we protect our valuables in. Now, it doesn't have to be valuables that we would necessarily put a monetary value on. It could be values like our mind, right? We could talk more about that. But understand a vault is a place where we keep all that secure. Combination is when we can have numbers, but it doesn't matter what order they're in. A permutation matters the order to which they are in. So I think that's really cool. And as our week kind of moves on, I feel you guys are going to be very interested in what we have to say here, because life does change, and understanding this little concept of combinations or permutations is going to be, like I said, it's going to be really, really wild. Okay. And so what I want to share with you is the fact that when we start to understand these combinations, and we start to understand like what they do and how they work, we can appreciate them in our everyday life. All right. We can appreciate them in our everyday life. Hey, Rakabo, how are you? Thank you so much. I'm glad that you like it. Yep, we are talking about VAK. Just got back from the city. I was at the New York Roadrunner, one of the security people, and was at that from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. this morning. So we're talking about VAK, visual, auditory, kinesthetic combinations for success in your life. Now, most people will not bother with VAK. They'll be like, I don't want to bother with that. I have no interest in VAK. Okay. So in a permutation, repetition is allowed. Such, you could have a code like 333, 444, 000, right? Permutations with repetition. So therefore, n to the power of basically the number of times, the number of places, right? So when we take 10 to 3, we get 1,000, right? 10,000. Then we shut out with the other, we get 10 million and that's a lot for phone numbers. So there's a lot of numbers in that space. So there's a lot we can do there. So I think as we start to appreciate this, and you're going to start to wonder, why am I doing this? And I'm doing this because I want you to get a good foundation of what combinations are, like visual, auditory, kinesthetic. And we're going to talk more about them. So V stands for visual, things we see. Auditory stands for things we hear. K stands for things we sense or we feel. Now, the challenge is a lot of people just feel that this is a learning modality, which is great. But I want to let you know that this came around a long time ago, and it came around as a learning modality first. Barb's VAK system. So Walter Burke Barb was born in 1926. He earned his bachelor's in science, master's and PhD from Northwestern University. Barb set out to investigate the modality strengths of individuals, identifying 3 varying channels for learning, namely visual, auditory, and kinesthetic. His research with his colleagues, Malone and Swasing, discovered individuals demonstrated approximately 30% visual, 30% mixed strengths, and 25% auditory and 15% kinesthetic. Barb Malone was the study in 1981. But there's some other people that came across the fact that VAK means more than just learning modalities. And we're going to talk more about that as we get into the week, but this is a really juicy topic. I love this topic. I learned it many years ago, and it's actually a thread of NLP, neuro-linguistic programming. I think when we understand that the map is not the territory, we get a little confused, but we also start to become curious, and we eventually figure it out. So knowing that there is a combination, actually a permutation to everything in our life, can actually help us to understand that our life has a formula. That's right. Our life has a formula. And that formula that it has is something that will allow us to reach our goals every single time. Like if you ever baked before, okay, so if you bake, then you'll know that you have to make, with cake, you have to use so much flour, so much yeast, so many eggs, so much vanilla, right? So much sugar, right? And so as we start to appreciate these things, we can understand what's going on. And I think the what's going on part is really cool because we can understand one thing. And that is the fact that our world is made up of combinations. Let me say that again. Our world is made up of combinations, right? Did you know that success has a combination? Success has a combination. And so just becoming curious is enough to get us on the path. You see, our subconscious mind always thinks about solving a problem. Even when we're not solving the problem, our subconscious mind will attempt to solve that problem. So we can put the problem away, we can come back to the problem later, and our subconscious mind is going to work on the problem. I think that is like really, really wacky. So you might ask me, so what in our world, okay, has permutations? And so those can be things like pins, right? Like you have a pin for your computer or a passcode, right? Those are combinations with a specific order, so we call them a permutation. So you might be on the fence and saying, John, this is kind of cool, but I want to know, how does this help me? So permutation is nothing more than an arrangement of objects, okay? And a combination is the selection of objects. So if the order matters, we have a permutation, okay? This is a very basic standard for cryptology and encryption. It's a very basic, it's not the whole piece. It's not the whole piece at all. So thinking about where we are and thinking about the fact that our life has these different combinations and permutations. And when we start to understand that VAK is more than just 3 letters like visual, auditory, and kinesthetic, it actually is letters that can help us understand stimulus modalities. And from that, we can then decide how we can approach something. How we can approach something. And that might sound confusing to a lot of you, but the truth of the matter is, it is not confusing. It's not confusing, ladies and gentlemen. Why? So it's not confusing because, it has a purpose. All right? It has a purpose. If you knew that a formula you're working on had a purpose, would that change your life? You might say, John, I don't really care. Well, I understand you're saying you don't really care. I get that and I respect that, but I'm here to tell you that there is more to it than that. There's more to it than that. And I'll tell you that when we think about a permutation or we think about a combination and knowing that we have the ability, okay, to make a change in our life if we can just understand that one thing, which is the fact that life is filled with combinations. Life is filled with combinations. Now, when you go buy a lock for your bike, you don't go buy a permutation lock because there's no such thing. It's just a combination. They don't get that specific about it, right? Combinations exist everywhere in life. Nature has a lot of combinations. And so when we can understand a combination and then reinstitute it over and over and over again, we've come up with a formula. All right. Ladies and gentlemen, I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. Of course, you know who I am by now. Sure, you do. And did you know, ladies and gentlemen, that we're almost at 40,000 downloads? Thank you. Thank you so much. Definitely scan that QR code. And when you do that, you can go to our link tree, believemeachieve.com. Click on that new section, Tools for Podcast Hosts and Guests. It's really pretty cool. I think you're going to love it. And so I am John C. Morley, serial entrepreneur. And I am a podcast host and a podcast coach. And I specialize in helping businesses tell a story that leads to them growing and being more scalable and profitable. I typically work with companies that bring in 10 million or more, and they either have a story that they want to tell, or they need someone to find out what their story is so it can be shared to the world. So grateful to have you guys here. Thank you so much for following me and all this great content. I mean, the fact that we're going to be at 50,000 downloads probably in maybe another month or so. And by the end of first quarter, we'll probably hit 100,000. So thank you very much, guys. I really do appreciate that. I hope you'll appreciate VAK and all that I'm going to bring you on it, because this is something that really could unlock success in your life. I hope you guys have an amazing rest of your night. I'll catch you tomorrow. Be well, everyone.